Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. When did you know you had to resign from your job? Part 5. I was way too smart for my field about 5 years ago and I couldn't get any job, so I applied for everything. It's still possible to get a job at this video rental store, so I thought, what the H, I don't care. Worst case scenario is nothing changes. Best case scenario is I can pay my bills for at least a while. In 2014, it's a video store, so they have no reason to be cocky. But I'm not kidding. The interview process took place over 3 separate interviews, each lasting at least an hour. It took me less time to interview for graduate programs. Anyway, I get the job and start training. On the second day, he tells me that my next training day is 45 minutes away and that I won't be getting paid extra for the drive. I don't even remember why I did it. I was probably just desperate. Being out of work for a long time does that to people, but I did it anyway. When I get there and work all day, he takes me into the children's movie cave, I guess for privacy? I'll never forget this place, but still, WTF, which is really decorated for kids. All the furniture is kids' furniture, etc. Right away, he tells me everything I'm doing wrong and says he needs to see improvement by the end of the day. Remember, I had only been on the job for about 10 hours at this point. After 20 minutes, when he still doesn't think I'm doing anything well, he lets me go back out and keeps working at the checkout counter. In a number of different ways, he made his inferiority complex very clear, such as telling me I am not allowed to claim anything other than 0 on my W-4, among other strange things. This is me at the counter trying to check someone out with seriously broken computers from the 1980s. No one's helping me, so I'm not talking a lot to the customer. I smiled and said something like, "Sorry, I'm new and trying to figure out how to check you out on the computer." They got it right away. I think they talked to me over and over to show they weren't in a hurry. It was also the kind of talk where they don't expect you to answer right away because they know you're paying attention. The jerk manager walks up to the customer just as I'm about to finish and turn my full attention back to them. He asks, "I don't know, this guy just doesn't seem like he really wants the job, am I right?" The customer looks very uncomfortable and doesn't say anything. The manager then looks at me and says, "I don't think you want it." I told the customer, "You're right, I don't," as I gave them their movies. I didn't to begin with, but figured it'd be easy money until I found something better since you've had that hiring sign up for over 6 months. I'd honestly rather be homeless than have to listen to you anymore. Grabbed my ass and walked out. I worked at a car rental company one summer. Anyone who's worked at one of those places knows that it's very tightly run. There are only as many employees as are needed to keep the place running, and customer service is expected to be top-notch. The boss also stresses selling rental insurance to every customer and doing all job duties perfectly. When I first started, I didn't get any formal training on how to use the accounting software, the computers and tablets, the vehicle inspection procedures, or the rental insurance in general. My boss didn't have much time to train me, so he put me with an entry-level worker who wasn't good at his job and had terrible sales numbers. When I first started working for him, he was right on top of me for everything I did wrong, even though he never properly trained me. He was always picking on me for every mistake or slip-up. A woman once returned her rented car with 1/8 of a tank of gas more than she had when she got it. As I was checking her out, I didn't think this was a big deal. Then my boss stepped in and refunded her the 1/8 of a tank and told her I was sorry for taking advantage of her kindness. He scolded me a lot for bad customer service after she left, even though I didn't know I could refund customers for things like that. Also, even though there were people whose job it was to clean and wash cars, my boss often sent me outside to help them, even though that wasn't even part of my lease agent duties. I kept going for more than a month until the 4th of July weekend. Since he was leaving for vacation the next day, my boss made sure we were all ready for the coming week. It was one of the busiest times of the year for rentals. Even though I had only been working there for a short time, I had already learned a lot and was making a lot of sales. There weren't many of us at the branch, so my boss's absence would make it much harder for us to get through the busy week. But he made sure that we'd be fine with all of us there. As the day came to a close, my boss was much calmer and talking with my coworkers in the back of the office. He left me in the front of the office by myself for the next 10 minutes until the office closed. The phone rang all of a sudden, and I picked it up. Customer said he wouldn't be back for another hour and asked if he could leave the keys in the drop box outside when the office closed. It was common for things like this to happen, so I told the customer it was fine, but reminded him that he would be charged for an extra day because he was returning the car after business hours. The customer was furious at this policy and demanded that we don't charge him for the additional day despite us having a strict policy on this. I finally gave up after arguing with the customer on the phone for 5 minutes straight. I interrupted my boss in the middle of a conversation with his coworkers and asked if it was okay if we didn't charge this customer the extra day. I put the call on hold and quickly told my boss what was going on. I knew that good customer service was very important to him. My boss gave me a mean look and said, "Really? You've been working here for a month, so you know how things work." My boss said, "That's the stupidest question I've ever heard." I said, "Okay," and was ready to leave it at that. I'm really scared about leaving for the week because of crap like this. After being hounded by my boss every day and being treated like a fool, this was the last straw. I picked the phone back up and told the customer, "Hey, I just spoke with my boss about this, and he said that's the stupidest request he's ever heard. The extra day will cost you." And then they hung up. Hearing me talk like that to a customer made my boss whip his head back over to me. I could tell he was about to lose it. I looked him in the eyes and told him, "I quit. Enjoy your trip. Good luck running the show this week," I told my coworkers, and left. While I was gone, my boss called me several times. After ignoring 3 of his calls, I blocked his number. I didn't have a job for the rest of the summer, but I was so happy. At a summer camp, I had a real psychopath for a boss. A week before camp started, they put up an ad looking for lifeguards. I put in for the job and got it. The first red flag should have been the fact that they still needed people so close to the start of camp. People ask us after 2 weeks of summer if we're going to come back next year. We all said no for different good reasons. To get my degree early, I planned to take summer classes the following summer. Another guard was taking part in an exchange program. Nothing to do with work, just other things they liked. We're all called in at the same time, and the boss tells us that if we don't want to work there, we can leave and she will gladly hire someone else. I talk about how many of us were hired late, which seems to mean that not many people applied. She told me to quit or shut up. I told her that she had told us how great it was to be on the water the week before when we held a small festival for campers, and now she wants to fire us all. That woman should go F herself, and good luck running the beach without any staff. The head lifeguard was the only one left behind after the other guards left. The next Monday, after we quit on Thursday, the boss bee emailed me to say that things had gotten out of hand and she wanted me to come back to talk about going back to work. When I talked to the other guards, we all said we got the same email. We all told her we'd be there Monday morning. We didn't show up. It's too bad that she has to cancel the whole waterfront program because she lost a ton of money on refunds. She lost her job at the camp at the end of the summer. Justice burns, baby. Could you share about a negative experience you have had with a homeowners association? Part 5. We caught our HOA flat out lying. We live right next to the neighborhood pool. It seemed that when they drained the baby pool, it would flood the neighbors' yards, making them mad. So the HOA manager had the brilliant idea of digging up the ground right against each neighbor's fence to make a ledge. This would make the pool property lower than the neighbors, stopping the water from flowing into the backyard. All of this happened before we moved in, but we know about it. Their work was done by one of our friends who worked for them part-time. Now, after a few years, our yard is wearing away and moving toward the pool property. It was so bad that a sprinkler head went over the fence and lost its way. It was because of the dirt they took away I wrote the HOA about it. She lied and said they cleaned up dirt in another place, but not that one. Then I gave her an email from that friend saying that he had done the work. She told him he was forgetting what she said. At the next board meeting, I showed them old pictures from Google Earth that showed not only the piles of dirt, but also the tractor that was working back there. Dirt work to remedy the situation was completed shortly thereafter. One of the best jobs I've ever had was working at the front desk of a condo. I helped crazy people live there for $20 an hour and got to read and work on my novel in between. One of these people was the head of the HOA. She had a great life with a rich, loving, and obedient husband who let her do whatever she pleased. But she was stuck at home taking care of her disabled son, whom she clearly disliked. She would push him around the building while she picked on all the workers, which was awful for everyone. If she saw a picture frame or countertop that wasn't clean, she would scream and run into the room. One of those folks. In other words, the HOA paid for everything in the building, like security and the front desk. The HOA didn't want to pay so much for security, so they fired the security company when they wouldn't lower their price. Because of this, the front desk was put in charge of security while they looked for cheaper security. We were told that we had to patrol at certain times, day and night, and watch the pool in shifts. We didn't get any training or learn the laws. After making the rounds as security, it was my turn to watch the pool one day. Then, someone at the front desk calls on the walkie-talkie and says they need the security keys, which I had. I go down and give her the keys. Then I go back up to my post. When I got there, the HOA bee was staring at me with her son. She starts screaming right away. It looks like one of the younger residents brought a glass bottle of champagne to the pool while I was away, which is against the rules. It was so loud that when I went to talk to the kid about the glass, he had already thrown the whole bottle away because he heard her. That girl was just as bad for him as everyone else, so he knew it was wrong. The next day, I find out I was fired when I get into work. Didn't matter what I said or did to try to make my boss understand. I didn't get it. I sat in my car and cried. Come to find out later that HOAB was cheating on her husband with my manager, and guess what? She got him fired soon after I was. I feel bad for her kid, but I kind of hope that B is still miserable. It's not crazy, but I used to live in a townhouse neighborhood. The driveways were only 1 wide and 2 cars deep. Since I shared a room with a couple, I chose to park on the curb. After a while, I noticed that my driver's side mirror needed to be adjusted in the morning. It looked like it had been hit or something. There was a 2-foot strip of grass between my car and the sidewalk where I parked it. The driver's side was at the curb. This was a stupid HOA rule. No parking on the street. People were parking on the street in 75% of the townhouses. As I noticed fingerprints on my mirror in the morning, I tried to figure out who was doing it. As I leave for work early one morning, I see a woman walking her dog and say hello and good morning to her as I go by. This is very strange for me because I'm at the most introverted and hate people stage of my life at the moment. She stops, turns around, and tells me, "You do know you can't park there," with that S tone. "Have a nice day," is all I say as I turn my head and look down the street, then down the other street at all the parked cars. I wasn't sure what to say because I'm not a morning person or a people person. Hearing people equals S on my way to work made me feel even more like an introvert. Funny enough, I didn't have to adjust my mirror this morning because I had gotten to my car before that bee. This is related to the question because she is the head of the HOA board. The HOA resurfaced roads half at a time. All roads in our subdivision are fire lanes, so don't park there. People asked on Facebook if they could park in the fire lanes on the other side of the subdivision ones because otherwise they'd be stuck in their driveway until the asphalt dried. No, they refused. They said we could park outside our gated community. This didn't please many because the neighborhood outside our gated community is rough. After resurfacing the roads, people parked outside the gate. The following morning, they found nearly all cars broken into, half of which were spray painted, and general vandalism such as keying and dents. One couple brought the HOA to court over this and won. If you want to watch the part 4, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments again. Many thanks for your support.